Hello, 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 hello. Hey, this is Warren Redlick. I am here with Alexandra. Before I get started, don't forget the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Some people think this has a sexual meaning. I don't know why they think that. It's not that at all. It's about robo-taxis and the value created by robo-taxis. For some reason, people think it's about something else. If you have a dirty mind, call me. Anyway, or DM me. So Alexandra contacted me. She pointed out that there is a proposed rule for the Securities and Exchange Commission. The comments are due by May 23rd. Today's May 19th, so there's 3 or 4 days left to submit your comments. There's a link in the description below to the page before where you make the comments. You have to scroll down a little bit to the spot, and the video description explains where you need to go. Alexandra is going to explain to us why this proposed rule matters. It has to do with credit ratings. It's going to affect Tesla. Alexandra, what's this all about?
Okay, so gonna take a couple of minutes, bear with me. So we all know the big recession of 2008. That triggered the Dodd-Frank Act, where Congress asked all the federal agencies to take off all references to credit agencies. Why? To credit ratings from credit agencies. Why? Because obviously the Moody's and the S&Ps of this world had helped. I mean, I don't want to get into that quickly yet.
They contributed to the mortgage crisis.
Exactly. And they were actually, for me, the bottleneck that made it happen. But we can, I mean, without rating agencies, the whole thing wouldn't have worked the way it did. And so Congress stood that, put in the Dodd-Frank Act, said to all the federal agencies, take off any obligation of credit agencies. That was 2010. We're now 2022. And in those 12 years, SEC moved slowly but surely, taking off any notion of credit rating obligation, meaning that somebody would have to make an investment decision based on credit ratings, except for, like it always is, there was always another exception and another exception. And so these exceptions are in what is called Rule 101 and Rule 102 of Regulation M. So in the end, what happens in reality is that lots of people flee into these little exception niche and still use credit ratings to justify their decisions. When I say lots of people, I mean investment funds saying, we only do investment grade investments, right? We only choose debt or otherwise stock of issuers that have investment grade. Or a lot of pension funds have the same. That's actually, for me, the biggest thing. The pension funds having these antiquated rules that are still based on credit ratings, because that's a lot and a lot and a lot of money. So those last two standings were Rule 101 and 102. Now, let me insert a little bit what happened a couple days ago. I started 2 months ago doing a table, which has been now all over the Twitter sphere, with indicators of financial strength for the top 28 market caps in the world, and also for some car makers. So I published on, what's their ratio of debt to equity or debt to EBITDA, whatever, and I put that in relation to the ratings of S&P and Moody's, and everybody in the upper 28 market caps has investment grade ratings, except for, you guessed it, Tesla, which is still junk rated, right? They are retarding and delaying as much as they can the upgrade to the investment grade. There are 10,000 reasons for that. We all know what it is, other than corruption. But then there we are. So the Tesla is still not investment grade for those. By doing that research this time, I came by pure coincidence to this currently published hearing from the SEC. They did that end of March. Now have a two months hearing period, which ends, you're right, on Monday, saying, okay, now we're tackling the last little niche, Rule 101 and Rule 102. We have a public hearing. If you feel we should also take off credit ratings from this last little niche, please speak up. And that's why I said, well, we have to speak up. We have as much as possible to speak up, because we have actually, as Tesla investors, two reasons to do so. First of all, if there is no reason anymore for any pension fund or anybody to use credit ratings, then Tesla will have additional investors. And then there is also a more derived reason, which is lots of car makers still have investment grades, don't deserve them. If they would ever been downgraded to what they should be, which they are not for another couple of reasons, that would actually open the flood for lots of people currently having to sell these because they were artificially held up. So I think that could actually do harm to the overall market. So not only Tesla related, the second reason, but to the overall market.
So wait. So there's a proposed rule. The current rule is that institutional investors are using credit ratings.
Yes.
And the rule would say that they can't use them anymore.
Well, that they are not obliged anymore, that they should substitute them with something else. Currently, there is law saying for certain investments, you have to have one or two of the credit ratings of the major credit rating agencies that have to be investment grade. That would go. That doesn't mean they can't do it, but they don't have the obligation anymore if this passes.
So an institutional investor like a pension fund, maybe.
Yes, but also lots of financial advisors, right? Don't underestimate the number of financial advisors telling their investors, saying, okay, I look after your money and everything I do is investment grade. Okay. And that notion wouldn't exist anymore.
Just really quick, it's not a petition. Moon asks in the chat, where can I sign the petition? Let's be clear about this. There's a link in the description below to a page on the SEC website. When the video description explains to scroll down a little bit to click on, to what you need to click on in order to be able to submit a comment. It's not signing a petition, it's submitting a comment. So what should people say in their comment? What brief thing can they say that would convey the message?
I have on my Twitter feed my whole reasoning with a letter. So if people want to use that letter, they can access it. It's on my Google Drive, and they can then just say, I support the same letter. But if they want to do something briefer, they can just say, I support this commission's proposal and want Rule 101 and Rule 102 of Regulation M not allowing credit rating obligations anymore.
So your tweet is the one that starts off with, hang on, I'm gonna put a link.
It's the one with the fire sign. I don't know whether you've seen
Fired up to ensure.
Yeah,
fired
up, exactly. And there's the link to the letter, and in the comment are all the links to how to comment.
Okay, I'm gonna link the second tweet in the thread.
Yeah.
And that way people will be able to find it. So if you're watching this right now, wait 1 second and it's going to be in the video description. And if you're watching this later, it's in the video description where to see Alexandra's tweet and where you can follow her. By the way, if you go to that tweet, you can follow her on Twitter, and you should. So I just have let's see. Right. Okay, so that is now in the video description. It's right below the directions about where to submit your comment. You can click on the Twitter link and you can read Alexandra's letter, which is in the tweet before the linked tweet. Yeah. And you can read her further detail about how else you can submit the comment, like you can email it to an address with the SEC. So what I think you're saying is that there are institutional investors that do not invest in Tesla currently because Tesla does not have an investment grade credit rating.
Yes.
And we don't know. And at some point, hopefully Moody's and S&P will change their minds and give Tesla investment grade credit rating, but that might not be for months, right?
That might not be for months. It's overdue. It's overdue for quite a while already. No doubt about it. Remember what happened when Tesla was supposed to get into the S&P index. That's the same S&P. What I deplore is the fact that these people have a lot of power. They have a timing power. They have a moment, it's how they turn it, how they twist it, and how they delay it. So and let me be very clear. I've worked in Moody's. I was an employee of Moody's from 1997 to 2003. I was a fund manager before 1997, having a Moody's rated fund. So I know exactly what they want to get you to a AAA. I've witnessed this whole asset-backed grow up, which was all based, you're going to laugh, on Monte Carlo probabilities. Right, we're back to it. So this whole shenanigan, this whole thing of one side only modeling it, but then using whatever you modeled to actually have political influence on what you're doing. Tesla is clearly not treated the way it should be.
Right.
And rather than us now waiting until the overlords of the rating agencies finally upgrade Tesla, I would very much prefer that we get to a system where we're not like sheeps waiting for a AAA or a double B or whatever, but where we're actively deciding who decides what. What happened with all these ratings? Let me just go a little bit historic. The history starts when John Moody, 120 years ago, I think it was, traveled to all these railroad expansions in the US, spoke to the people working on them, came back to Wall Street and said, okay, for this railroad segment, the guy was really great, the team was really great, that's AAA, the other one is not so good, whatever. So I understand that there was a historic need of information, somebody doing the legwork and then condensing it in some symbols, whatever. Then S&P came to the table and they both did it. If I recall it right, about 95% of the ratings overlap. It's a very cozy industry. I had in my contract in 1997 that I would never go to the competitor, meaning S&P. So that was already, you know, that there was already understanding that that they would not, you know, get analysts from one to the other, yet work very closely together. So they've made the opinion. Now, while up to the late 1990s, information was rare or expensive to get onto. Today, you have financial information on your fingertips, right? I mean, for me, doing that table that Elon commented on 2 days ago, it took me 2 hours to do that table. There was nothing major. It was 2 hours after a busy day, so I wasn't even on the best of my forms. So if I can do it in 2 hours, anybody can do it in 2 hours. And the fund managers that's their day job, that have even much more access to information than I have, can do it even quicker. So what would they need?
Well, let's be clear about this. What you described the history was Moody went out into the field and got information that wasn't easily available, and he used that to generate his ratings. Where we are today is they're using publicly available information that anyone can access, and then they're just offering an opinion based on publicly available information.
Exactly.
And anyone can look, and this is one of the comical things, just for the, I'm going to put on my pro-Tesla hat for a second. I know Alexandra is also pro-Tesla, but
let's do it.
Tesla has a big pile of cash. They are generating really substantial profits, and they have very little debt. And so, and at the same time, let's say Ford and General Motors have, and Tesla also has fast growth. Ford and General Motors have minimal profits. They have a lot of debt. I think they still have a fair amount of cash, but they have a crazy amount of debt. I don't know if they have as much cash as Tesla has. And they have, with having much higher debt than Tesla has, being less functionally profitable and with less growth, they have better credit ratings than Tesla. And
don't forget their unfunded liabilities, right?
Right, their pension
funds, dealerships as franchisees with 10-year contracts that they will never be able to fulfill. I mean, if ever you want to do a video on what I think actually is their biggest risk, it's their franchise model. That is crazy. The promises they've made to their franchisees, that invested a lot of money in their parking lots, no doubt about it, but that will come and bite them, because those dealers are making money on repairing cars and oil changes. I mean, that's a whole other subject. But yes, you're completely right. So Ford is actually the only one that is rated the same than Tesla, but the GMs, the Toyotas, the Hondas, and all them are much better rated. My table shows it, I think, in a very eloquent manner, if ever you want to link to that one.
So the companies that needed government bailouts are better rated
than
the companies that didn't.
And you can actually make the argument, given that they were bailout, they probably are too big to fail and will always be bailout. So we may as well give them investment grade, because they will always be the taxpayer, right? I mean, so again, I just want to say, I actually think these whole credit ratings are obsolete.
Right. Well, it doesn't add value if they're just offering an opinion based on publicly available information. We can get opinions from, in Wall Street analysts offer opinions. You can get opinions from columnists and barons or the Wall Street Journal. I can offer an opinion. You can offer an opinion. There's an interesting question. What is it about S&P and Moody's that makes their opinion deserving of more weight than the opinion of Ives, what's his name, Dan Ives, or Pierre Farragut?
Exactly. Well, it is that the SEC had rules that certain funds and certain fund advisors CFAs had to include ratings when they proposed something, right? And so this is the last one standing. The one that we're just talking about is the last one standing. For 12 years, they started clearing out. But by clearing out, it was always, and I mean, you will understand that because you work with government, it was always leaving one niche to actually a lot of people, where people that were booted out of the first regulations went to that one, and that's now the last one standing. What I can't understand, and again, I found it just by pure coincidence as well, is that nobody's talking about that, and that there are currently only 3 public comments on this whole proposal, out of which 2 are absolutely useless. The only one that is useless is actually the secretary of this commission, who is favorable to it. So that's already a good thing.
Okay,
and then
let me just say this to be clear for people. If you've just started watching, we're talking about a proposed rule at the SEC that, if adopted, where I think it's actually a proposed removal of a rule effectively.
Exactly.
It's a proposed rule that affects how credit rating agencies, Moody's and S&P, the impact they have on institutional investors. They have a negative, the current state of affairs, it has a negative effect on Tesla stock. And so anyway, you can submit a comment until May 23rd. So you have 3 or 4 days left. There is a link in the description below to a page on the SEC website where you can submit a comment. There's a description of how you get, in the video description, you can see how you find the thing where you click, where you can actually submit your comment. And there's just below that, there's a link to Alexandra's tweet, or actually there's a 2-tweet thread. I think the link is to the second tweet. You can look up to see the first tweet where she has her letter to the SEC, and you can mimic her comment. But I think the short comment would be, I support this rule. S&P and Moody credit ratings are obsolete and no longer add value as a signal of whether something's a good investment or not. I think that's something short like that, to say, I support this proposed change to the rules.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm just going to say this again. If you're going to submit a comment, this is the suggested comment. Hi, thank you for doing this. I support this change to the proposed rules. S&P and Moody's credit ratings no longer add meaningful value to investor decision making, and this is obsolete and should be then that requirement should be removed. Thank you.
Perfect.
Say something like that, and then that will help. Now, I think this is a short-term problem for Tesla, because I think somewhere in the next 3 to 6 months, maybe a year, Tesla will get a higher level credit rating. It's foolish that Tesla doesn't have a high level credit rating, because they have a big pile of cash, they have very little debt, they're generating profits, they're growing, everything's great. And it's ridiculous that some of the companies that have higher credit ratings than Tesla have higher credit ratings than Tesla when you consider Tesla's success compared to these other companies. Anyway, so let's take a step back for a second. I think you said this earlier, but just so the audience knows, what's your background to know about Moody's and S&P and credit ratings and why this stuff matters? What's your background in all this?
But thanks for asking me, because I can then again say that I'm 56. You have no idea how many comments I had on the last video saying, you're lying, you're not 56. Well, thank you very much. I am 56. So for full disclosure, I started my career in 1991 as a fund manager, initially at Deutsche Bank and then at a subsidiary of Commerzbank. So those are both German banks, but they had in Paris their fund management, because the French have a very good, what's called CCAF model, mutual funds. And so they understood that there was lots of know-how in the French system that they used for the mutual funds that were then marketed by the German banks. Anyway, long story short, moved up there and was eventually the fund manager of the biggest mutual funds in Europe. And 2 of those were rated by Moody's AAA. So I knew exactly what I had to do in those funds to get to AAA, because it's quite statistical, mathematical. That's actually another good joke, because lots of people think I have no clue about statistics, but that's another story. But there we go. And so when they got rated AAA, Moody's also comes and talks to the fund managers, looks at risk management systems and all that, found that I was good at what I was doing and offered me a job. So I became what was at the beginning a VP position that became a VP senior credit officer position, responsible for all fund ratings in continental Europe. And I developed in that phase the methodology that is still in place for rating open-ended real estate funds. That's a completely other story, but there we go. So I'm profoundly familiar with ratings, how they're built, the flaws of the rating agencies. I was in a niche within Moody's because these fund ratings are a niche compared to corporate ratings or asset-backed ratings, but we were always obviously corresponding. We were doing cross-department credit rating sessions when we were, giving sessions. I was actually very privileged to assist in the one where they downgraded Japan. That was another experience in my life. And so I left Moody's in 2003. I then co-founded my own rating agency. It's called Scope, still exists. I left Scope in 2007 and since have not been in the financial markets.
Okay. So I think we've pretty much covered this issue. Just clarify again for people who are watching, there is a proposed rule change at the SEC. There's a link in the description below. You go to that link and then you scroll down a little bit and the description below tells you what you want to click on, which rule you want to click on in order to submit your comment. We suggest your comment should be S&P and Moody's credit ratings are obsolete, no longer add value to the investment community, and I support this proposed rule change. Really quick, I want to change the subject a little bit because I see a lot of chat comments about this, and we're talking about S&P or Moody's or whatever, and there's this thing in the S&P called ESG rating.
Oh my God.
I don't know if you want to go into that. ESG stands for environmental, social, and I don't even know what G stands for. And Tesla got removed from the ESG list.
Yeah.
And it's the most bizarre thing because ExxonMobil is on this list, one of the worst polluters in the world.
I mean, it's another complete scam. And it brings me back to that subject that these people have to be, their teeth have to be pulled. I can't express it differently. They have too much power in the hand of a happy few, which are influential. You have to understand, so you have S&P and Moody's. Moody's has a lot of other influences, but S&P, it's even more clear because S&P is not only S&P, it's the S&P Dow Jones indices. So you have the whole index benchmark business. Now you have to also know that loads of ETFs and mutual funds are just trackers of benchmarks. So whatever they do in those benchmark mendelings, who is in, who is out, when it's in, when it's out, remember, has this whole influence again of them steering the market how they want to. Now add to that Elon with his tweets, with his political statements, with wanting to buy Twitter, with whatever, and you just feel how somebody pulls the strings. I don't know how it happens and who does it, but then suddenly this whole establishment does what it has to do, and us Tesla investors, we hear it. Now, some of us have the reaction, oh, please tell Elon to shut up. Well, I don't think Elon should be told to shut up. I'm sorry. We have free speech and he may as well see it. And if that hurts the stock, well, get to another stock. But what I really hate is that there are these happy few who have an influence and these times have gone. And we have to make sure that our generation is the one that clears it up.
Yeah, well, let's talk briefly about Elon, Twitter, his comments on Twitter. So I'm just going to say this bluntly. I agree with you 100%. Elon is saying things that are true. And people are angry at him for speaking the truth. The impact on the stock is silly. I've had this conversation with people before. Well, tell me how this is affecting the company, because I'm a long-term investor, right? I'm not playing short-term trading games. I'm not buying on margin. I'm not buying call options or selling put options or whatever. I'm looking, where's the stock going to be in 2026? Where's the stock going to be in 2030? Really quick pitch for why, just like the simplest message I have for anybody who doubts Tesla in the future. In 2021, Tesla delivered 936,000 vehicles out of basically 1.5 factories. Fremont and Shanghai was ramping for the course of 2021. So basically 1.5 factories delivered 936,000 cars. In 2023, Tesla will have operational by the end of 2023, 5 factories. Okay, there's going to be the Fremont factory is going to be there. It's probably going to be a little bit more efficient than it was before. Shanghai will be fully ramped, probably early 2023, if not the end of this year. Plus, one of the new factories will be an additional 450,000 capacity factory in Shanghai. And we already know when Tesla says 450,000 capacity in Shanghai, that really means 900,000 capacity in Shanghai.
I actually wonder why they don't announce 420,000, right? While we're at it.
Just for fun, right? 420,000 at 69. And then the Giga Texas factory and the Giga Berlin factory. So you go from Fremont and Shanghai to Fremont and full Shanghai plus a new Shanghai, and then Giga Berlin and Giga Texas. And the new Shanghai, the current Shanghai, the new Shanghai, and Berlin and Texas are all more efficient, more productive than the original Fremont factory that was the bulk of the deliveries in 2021. So if you can't see the growth, I don't know what to tell you. The growth is insane. So the reason, and that doesn't count that they've announced that they are going to be building factories probably in 2023 to deliver a whole new line of cars in 2024. So there's so much coming. But I want to get back to this ESG thing for a second. Just the fundamental point is that Tesla is probably the most positive environmental company in the S&P 500, if not the entire market. They're delivering solar power. They're delivering battery backup to improve grid reliability and make solar and wind more viable as energy sources. They are delivering electric vehicles that pollute much less, even when you include the whole life of the vehicle, the manufacturing of the vehicle, the whole life of the vehicle, much less emissions in a variety of ways. They're much more environmentally friendly than any other car, probably more environmentally friendly than most other EVs as well. So, but dramatically better than internal combustion engine cars. And you'll see that S&P's ESG list includes companies that make gasoline powered, diesel powered cars, companies that produce oil and gas. And there's this social and governance end of it. And somehow there's this idea that Tesla has poor governance when that doesn't really make, look, I mean, the fundamental thing about Tesla that's different in a lot of ways is Tesla's CEO owns a lot of the stock. He owns about 20%. Sometimes I hear 16%, sometimes I hear 25%, but he owns roughly 20% of the stock. Most CEOs of companies, whether it's Ford or ExxonMobil or whatever, they probably own like 1% or less.
Look at Twitter. When he wanted to buy Twitter, he looked at whether the current management owned anything. It was hardly anything.
Yeah, outside of the CEO who owns, I don't know, 0.6% or 0.06%. The rest of the board owns almost nothing. And Larry Ellison's on the board, and he's, I think, one of the other largest individual shareholders of Tesla. And Kim, I don't know if Kimball's still on the board, but Kimball Musk is a fairly large shareholder. So the board is aligned with the shareholders. The board is diverse. You've got Robin Denholm, I think, is the chairman of the board. She's from Australia. You've got Hiromichi Mizuno from Japan on the board. The management team is diverse. You've got all these people from South Asia, other parts of Asia. I mentioned Hiromichi Mizuno. There's so many good things about Tesla in terms of governance. I don't even know what the social is. The fact that the CEO speaks up in favor of free speech is somehow a problem. There was this really brief explanation of why they were removing Tesla from the ESG list, and it made absolutely no sense.
Oh, but it was because, why didn't it make any sense? Because it had to be put together in a couple of minutes. And then once it was out there, they were happy because on top of it, the way they put it out, it made it sound, if you didn't pay attention, that Tesla was thrown out of the S&P 500, right? Of course, They said S&P 500 ESG index, but you know how the stock exchange is, I mean, 3 letters and what is ESG and whatever. Now, I really liked this morning a tweet from Gary Black, who explained that the funds tracking the S&P 500 ESG are 11.7 billion. The funds tracking the S&P 500 really, and having to adjust to that, is 5.4 trillion. Okay, right. So it is just crazy to understand what they are doing. They are trying to influence a market that is 50 times bigger. Sorry, right. 500 times bigger than the one they can really influence, by making up some stupid story, just blowing it up like they always do. And this just proves my point. They have to be made redundant. And so I really hope that people understand, while I worked for them and I had my good times there and I did what I could, this is all crap. What they're doing is useless, antiquated, and actually dangerous.
Yeah, I'm going to look there. There was this quote. there was this, I'm trying to find the quote from what did he say? There was some, I found some description, and I don't see it yet. There was some line where S&P said this is why we removed them. And
yeah, it was a couple of law cases.
It was like two paragraphs. It was like less than a paragraph.
Yeah.
He said
know
the company attributed Tesla's fall off the list to reports about poor working conditions. Wait, let me read the blog post rather than an article about the blog post.
Poor working conditions. I mean, you gotta be kidding.
Yeah, I just want to read this so we're being fair. That the title of the paragraph is Talking Tesla. Maybe I can share. No, I'm just going to read it. I'll share screen.
Go ahead.
I'll share the screen so people can see what I'm talking about. Share screen. Share. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Let me make this bigger. Okay, so it says Talking Tesla. I hope people can see this. First and foremost, the GICS industry group in which Tesla is assessed, automobiles and components, experienced an overall increase in its average ESG score. So while Tesla's score has remained fairly stable year over year, it was pushed further down the ranks relative to its global industry group peers. So apparently, the fact that Ford and General Motors and some other companies made a small number of EVs increase that, it's unclear what did they do that pushed them up. But a few of the factors contributing to its score were a decline in criteria. This is one of those things. A decline in criteria level scores related to Tesla's parenthetical lack of low carbon strategy. Tesla has a zero carbon strategy.
Well, it's not a low carbon strategy. You didn't get it, Warren.
What does this even mean?
It doesn't.
This doesn't make any sense. What they and codes of business conduct. What
you can go to the 5 and 6 below the real.
Oh, go down to the actual.
Yeah, because there comes.
Low carbon strategy focuses on company strategies to reduce the carbon intensity of its car portfolio, but also assess its current portfolio exposure to regulatory risks. What are you talking about? And then
you see, the thing is, since they are at zero, they cannot.
How are they supposed to reduce the carbon intensity when they're zero carbon?
Because they can't go lower, so they have a problem.
This is incredibly stupid. It's current portfolio exposure to regulatory risks. How is Tesla's portfolio exposure different to regulatory risk different from any of these other companies?
That's exactly my point. This is corruption and stupidness at its best. Then
6 says codes of business conduct criteria encompass a company's implementation, transparent reporting on breaches, and the occurrence of corruption and bribery cases and anti-competitive practices. Tesla has had no incidents that I'm aware of corruption or bribery. I guess because the other companies have had experiences of corruption and bribery, but they report on them transparently. They're better on governance and social than Tesla, which doesn't have any incidents of corruption and bribery. Anti-competitive practices, Tesla's opening up its supercharger network to people. They open source their patents. Their anti-competitive practices are that they compete. Like, this is just total nonsense. So let me go back though to the description here. In addition, a media and stakeholder analysis, a process that identified, let's see. Process seeks a company's current and potential future exposure to risks stemming from its involvement in a controversial incident, identified 2 separate incidents centered on claims of racial discrimination and poor working conditions at Tesla's Fremont factory. Okay, so let's be clear. Every car maker gets sued. Every car maker faces claims of racial discrimination. Every car maker faces claims of poor working conditions. Amazon gets claims of poor. Does Amazon have an ESG rating?
I don't know. But in any way, even if they would have one, believe me, it wouldn't change because nobody cares about it.
But there's all kinds of accusations about poor working conditions at Amazon.
Yeah,
there's stuff about people having to pee in a bottle while they're working. I mean, exactly. Just be clear, I don't believe the claims of poor working conditions at Tesla's Fremont factory. I was in a clubhouse room, which was like an ambush for it was just a room like people lying about Tesla. And there were Tesla employees, black Tesla engineers and employees who came into the room to say, no, this is not my experience. I've really enjoyed working at Tesla. And they would get shouted down and people would insult them. And, you know, it's like the people who accuse Tesla of being racist, let's say, people are calling them racial names because they're saying, no, I've worked at Tesla for years, or I used to work at Tesla, and it was a really great experience and they treated us really well, and, you know, so on. And the fact that one person can make an accusation, and look, there's 100,000 employees. There's going to be something bad that happens when you have 100,000 employees. There's going to be a moment, but this happens at all companies. The thing is, when something happens with Tesla, it gets headlines because if you put Tesla in your headline, you get more clicks. And the media may have a bias against Tesla. Sorry. And then the other thing was, as well as its handling of NHT investigation after multiple deaths and injuries were linked to its autopilot vehicles. No. The deaths and injuries were not linked to its autopilot vehicles.
Exactly.
That's not true.
Yeah.
And how did they handle the NHT investigation? Poorly. They provided whatever information the NHTSA wanted. This is total nonsense. This is a total hit. This is a hit job. This is a scam. Let me go back though. There was a footnote 7.
And that's why we have to all work to get them made useless. That's it.
So the media and stakeholder analysis is ongoing screening of company controversies that may have financial or reputational impacts on companies assessed. So in other words, if the media says bad things about a company, that somehow affects their ESG rating. If Joe Biden says that Mary led, that has a positive impact on GM's score.
Probably does, right?
Right. And because all the media reports, well, Joe Biden said that Mary led, Mary, the CEO of General Motors. So I'm going to take us out of screen sharing so we can go back to normal here.
But you see how ridiculous it is? And
I knew how ridiculous it was. I hope the audience sees how ridiculous it is.
Well, what I want to show, if you allow me, I don't know whether, you've disabled screen sharing.
I can put it back on. Okay, well, I think I have to give you the option to share.
Yeah, you have to, exactly. When you go, I
think I just did that.
You did? Let me see that. Yeah. So I'm sorry, this is my Twitter feed, but what's important is actually what's in the middle of Gary's last tweet.
Okay, so thanks to Gary Black, by the way, for his Twitter account. I argue with Gary a lot, but we all have to appreciate the value he adds.
Yeah. Can you still see it when I open it? Does that still show? Okay, perfect. So what he shows here is how much money is managed because or based on these indices. And so this is obviously the S&P indices. Okay, so we're talking about 15 trillion assets linked to these. I'm not saying the word. I really want to say it, but I'm not saying it. On these, I put it mildly, corrupt combinations of people, right? They are really trying. So this is 15 here, and then there's another 3 trillion here. So it's nearly 19 trillion based on their mixture of indices. And these are the same people that do credit ratings, that influence the people who invest other than just copying the indices. So we're talking about people that are really they're the bottleneck. They were the bottleneck of the 2008 problem. They are the bottleneck still. They've been protected for a long time. And please, let's just all help together and try to get rid of them.
Just really quick, if you look down, I don't know if people can see this because it's probably small on your screens, but there's a spot that says ESG in the second group, and it's 65 or 66 billion dollars. Total asset value is 65 or 66 billion dollars out of we're talking about 19 trillion dollars. It's not 6 trillion. It's not 600 billion. It's 65 billion out of 19 trillion. So it's an incredibly small share. And the way that the story broke, it made it seem like it was about the 19 trillion instead of the 65 billion.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And that was done on purpose. I mean, the whole reasoning is bogus. And then the way it was published was done on purpose to hurt Tesla. And like Elon said yesterday, he's going to be targeted more and more.
Let's end the screen share, though.
Yes, sure. Sorry about that.
I think you're okay. So, yeah, and I want to say this. I'm a long-term investor. To me, this kind of stuff is like bumps in the road. They don't really matter. If you're not planning to sell your stock until 2026 or 2030 or later, then the momentary ups and downs in the stock price have pretty small impact, if any, on Tesla as a company. It probably hurts company morale because employees have a lot of their net worth in Tesla stock. At the same time, Tesla employees get to buy stock every quarter based on, I think, the lowest share price of the quarter or some number like that. So a Tesla employee who is planning on holding their stock long term and understands all this stuff gets to buy the stock cheaper. They get incentives to buy the stock at a low price. So in some sense, this helps the company for the employees who get the future. And my own experience talking to Tesla employees at the Gigafactory, I went to Cyber Rodeo, at the Plaid event, when I went to the Plaid event, my own experience with Tesla employees is they get it. They are totally in on the long term. So I don't think the impact on Tesla is very significant. I think the attack is based on the idea that if they can drive down the value of Tesla stock for long enough, it will make it more difficult for Elon to acquire Twitter, because he won't. I think that is the intent. And there's a saying that some of us in the Tesla community believe. It's called "Never bet against Elon." And I'm actually surprised to see the number of people I would generally consider the Elon faithful who are criticizing Elon for engaging in this political stuff. And it's like, look, Elon is who he is. And you're not going to agree with everything he does. There's going to be moments where you don't like something he does.
May I jump in there? I think we have at the moment the reaction of people that are traditional Democrats that are disappointed that he's not Democrat anymore. I think that's what you hear a lot. I think that people that were apolitical or more in the center or even on the right, obviously either pleased or just couldn't care. But I think there's a disappointment because some people had thought that they were aligned with Elon's thinking, and so that expresses. But that's all.
Wait. Let me just say something here. So I'm a registered Democrat. I'm not a partisan Democrat, but I am a registered Democrat. I vote in Democrat primaries. I have voted for Democrats, including the last election. I voted for Tina Polsky, who was my neighbor, for state Senate, and I voted for Nikki Fried for state agriculture commissioner. And here's the thing: I don't care that Elon has decided he's not going to be a Democrat anymore. He's joined the Republican Party. I don't care about that. The concern I have is that the Democratic Party does not stand for what the Democratic Party used to claim they stand for. Yeah. If you are identifying with the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party believes in certain principles, well, they obviously don't care about climate change. They obviously don't care about good government. They obviously don't care about world peace. They don't care about minimizing conflict and ending wars. I mean, I think you have to ask yourself this question: what is it that the Democratic Party stood for when you started believing in them, and what do they stand for now? You can't tell me that they believe in democracy after what they did to Bernie Sanders in the 2016 primaries. You can't tell me that they believe in non-corruption when you look at what if you choose to actually read the Hunter Biden story. If you want to put blinders on and pretend that Hunter Biden doesn't exist and everything that involved with Hunter Biden doesn't exist, and it's not limited to the Bidens. You can read, there's an author named Peter Schweizer, who you can find his books on Amazon. Some of his books are partisan Republican, but half of his books roughly are bipartisan takedowns, including taking down Trump and Secret Empires. There's a book called Extortion that's brilliant. A lot of his books, Secret Empires is probably the best and most recent one. There's a lot of takedowns of corruption in government, both on the Republican and the Democrat side. And the Democrats are just they're equally involved. And the suppression of free speech, the Democratic Party commitment to the suppression of free speech, I don't want to go there with there's a certain point, the way that the public health situation was handled and the lack of attention to the concept of my body, my choice, the total disregard for my body, my choice when it came to public health involving a certain thing that was traveling around the world. They don't make any sense. You watch the White House press conferences and you see the absolute insanity. The disregard for feminism. The way the Democratic Party has turned on feminism in favor of some other special interests. There's a traditional feminism that I think is actually largely embraced by the Republican Party now. And even gay rights, gay marriage, for example, is largely embraced by the Republican Party. But there's a certain turn and really criticism of traditional feminism that's just shocking in the Democratic Party. So in so many different ways, And by the way, if you ever want to hear me rant about Republicans, I can go there. I have a lot of criticisms of Republicans. I'm not a Republican. I'm a libertarian.
I would actually correct you. I don't think he joined Republicans. He just said he wants to vote this November for the Republicans, because I think he feels like he needs to vote. His vote has to contribute to send a signal to the Democrats that they've gone far too left.
Well, I mean, there's two things here. One, they've gone too far to the left in a lot of ways, this woke left ideology. But the other thing is they've been attacking Tesla. There has been, and I you can check my channel recently. I did a video about the Democratic Party war on Tesla and Elon. They've been attacking Elon and Tesla pretty much since Biden took office. And this is a stark contrast to the Obama administration. Elon had a great relationship with the Obama administration. He is or was friends with the Emanuel brothers, Rahm Emanuel, Zeke Emanuel. He hired, there are people working for Tesla who were Obama administration officials. Elon had a great relationship with the Obama administration. I think he had an okay relationship with the Trump administration. He left.
I mean, he was initially on that committee, right? And then
he left the committee because he wasn't happy with Trump's disregard for the Paris Accord, which I don't want to get into climate change, but he was critical of Trump at appropriate moments. He's not this guy who's like partisan one way or the other, but there has been a war on Elon by the Democratic Party. And this is the key distinction. What people will say to me is, oh, Warren, that's just certain leftists like Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Robert Reich. Like, no. First of all, it's Joe Biden. Yeah. Okay. It's Joe Biden who's the leader of the Democratic Party. He's the president of the United States, and he held 2 EV summits without inviting Tesla at either one. He has, I think he said the word Tesla once. I don't think he's ever said Elon Musk's name. He hasn't acknowledged SpaceX's contribution to national security, to being able to launch astronauts to the space station without relying on Russian rockets. There's so many things that Elon's doing that are so good, and the hostility of the Biden administration. And then here's the big test for people who say to me, "Wait a minute, Warren, it's just these extremist Democrats, moderate." And I'm not talking about Democrat voters. Just want to be clear. I'm talking about Democrat politicians. I'm talking about the Democratic Party machine at the federal level, at the state level. All I ask is show me a Democrat, a prominent Democrat, who is supporting Elon publicly and criticizing Biden for the EV summit, fiasco, criticizing Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Robert Reich and the squad for how they're attacking Elon and Tesla. Show me these people. Show me that there are Democrats who are speaking up in favor of what Elon is doing. Show me, and the reality is they don't exist. Have you seen any? I mean, you're in California, you're the land of Democrats. No. Does Gavin Newsom say anything nice about Elon and Tesla?
No, and I want to bring up another point, because there seems to be a lot of discussion that this will hurt Tesla sales, that all these people, Democrats, won't purchase a Tesla anymore. Well, good luck with that. I can tell you one thing. It's one thing what you want to vote and what you hope Elon would vote for. It's another thing what car you want to drive. You're not going to drive a crap car because Elon may vote Republican. Or if that's your case, well, then go and join that club, but there won't be a lot of people there. So I don't believe so. But at the same time, I can tell you Elon's action, because obviously, I mean, just make this very clear, I'm much more right on the spectrum of politics than you are, but Elon's image.
So wait. I'm so far to the right, I look like I'm somewhere else.
Oh, no, I'm not so far on the right, but you still declare yourself a registered Democrat, right? I would never been a registered Democrat, but so there we go. But I know there's strategic points.
Wait, I have to address this really quick. The reason I'm a registered Democrat, and the reason why you probably should be a registered Democrat, is because the only vote that I cast, the votes that I cast that matter the most, I live in a place where the Democrats dominate. Palm Beach County, Broward County are where the Democrats dominate. And so the most important elections in a place where the Democrats dominate is a Democratic Party primary. And here you can only vote in a Democratic Party if you're a Democratic Party primary.
That's actually clever. I give you that. That's clever. I can't do that because I can't.
Right. I've been registered Republican before. If I was going to register for a party, I would register Libertarian, but Libertarian primaries don't matter. Yeah, in the general election, I can vote for whoever I want for. So it's a strategic choice to register Democrat.
And it's probably clever. And give me the benefit that, as a new American, I have to get used to this. This is crazy land out there. I mean, your politics is something. But anyway, so I'm on the right, and I can tell you the TAM of Teslas on the right has been tripled
The TAM, the total addressable market.
Yes, since Elon announced that he wants to purchase or may purchase now Twitter,
Right.
the whole thing is now suddenly this guy becomes identifiable for somebody on the right. I mean, it's always been to us, but not to the normal truck driver or whatever. And I do believe that the whole argument that this will sell less Teslas is just completely wrong. It would actually, the overall time has probably doubled.
Right. I actually think the Democratic Party is making a terrible strategic mistake because Elon is very popular among Democrat voters. You know, I mean, what's the Tesla's biggest state? Tesla's biggest state is California, the state dominated by Democrats. It mostly sells in cities, which are mostly dominated by Democrats. I'm here in Palm Beach and Broward County, Florida, and there's Teslas everywhere. You go to Republican counties, then you see fewer Teslas because they tend not to sell as well in rural areas, and rural areas tend to be more Republican. So,
and lots of rural and lots of more Republican states still have these antiquated roles that you need a franchise model to sell the cars or the dealerships. So you have a lot of reasons, and this has shifted the thought of the more right-leaning states much more in favor of Tesla.
Right, and then the other side of it is that the average Republican probably has more money than the average Democrat. In general, you know, the Republican Party is supposedly the party of the wealthy. That's the criticism the Democrats say all the time.
Look at who the wealthiest billionaires other than Elon support. They all support the Democrats. I actually think that you have with the Democrats the same problem we had in Europe with the left-wing parties. They become very cozy with the rich elites and lose the working class.
Right.
I think you're having the same problem in the United States too.
Well, no, I'm not saying the billionaires, but I'm just mean sort of like the median Democrat voter and the median Republican voter, or the average Democrat voter, average Republican voter. The Democrat accusation of the Republicans is that the Republicans are the party of the wealthy, which is odd.
Can you believe that? We were supposed to talk SEC and we talk politics again.
Well, the SEC is politics, to be clear.
It is.
Yeah, Securities and Exchange Commission is politics.
It is.
No, we were talking about ESG. I don't know if you, I mean, actually, I think you said you had a limited amount of time. How are we on your time schedule?
We're still good half an hour.
Okay. So I just think that when you look at, when you were just describing the total market, I think you're correct. First of all, Californians aren't going to stop buying Teslas because Elon says he's going to vote Republican. Californians love Teslas. Yeah. Floridians in Palm Beach and Broward are not going to stop. There's an extreme few, like, you know, a small percentage of Democrat voters who are so passionate about their party that this will offend them enough that they will buy some other crappy car instead of a Tesla. But 98% of Democrat voters and 98% of Republican voters are going to buy the car they want, and they're not going to care what the CEO says on Twitter. I don't know whether it's 90. And let's not forget, Tesla has an order backlog of roughly a year on the typical vehicle they sell. So they don't really have a problem selling cars. They, you know, and this is the thing that I've been saying. Like, I've been a little annoyed at people criticizing Elon. Number one, I'm pretty sure he knows what he's doing. The idea that random Twitter person knows better what's best for Elon or Tesla than Elon knows is kind of silly. He has political advisors who worked for the Obama administration. It's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. It's not like he doesn't have people to talk to him who know more about politics than you or I do, or the random Twitter person who's criticizing him. But the reality is that they've been at war with him. Like, you know, Donald Trump showed up for a SpaceX launch when they launched astronauts to the space station. Whatever, like, I don't like Donald Trump, but he showed up and he said Elon's a genius, and he said, you know, he really appreciates what SpaceX is doing for America. Where's Joe Biden? Why doesn't Joe Biden acknowledge what Tesla's doing on climate change, what SpaceX is doing for NASA and the Defense Department?
Opening of Austin. I mean, how can you ignore the opening of Austin being the administration?
Opening probably the largest automotive factory in North America,
and the most modern factory in the world. Exactly.
And I mean, in the most liberal city in Texas.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and where you could have really made a statement. I mean, so easy, believe me. Yeah. They would have called, said, Biden wants to come. That was it. 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, and this is actually a criticism that Elizabeth Warren was being interviewed by somebody, and, you know, she'd been bashing Elon, and somebody, it was like I forget what channel. It's like, well, why don't we celebrate, you know, his successes? And she says, well, of course we celebrate. Joe
Kernan on CNBC.
And then, like, but she never said anything. She has never tweeted once.
No.
You know, great job, Elon, on delivering a new electric vehicle. Apparently AOC drives a Tesla.
Exactly. I was just going to say that AOC apparently drives a Tesla. Why does she never admit she drives a Tesla?
Why not brag about it? Why not say what a great thing it is?
Exactly. And why do all these Democrats don't tell her, come on, show your Tesla, or tell us you've sold it, or anything? Nothing.
Yeah. But we know where. I'm just saying, like, you can criticize Elon for something, fine, but where is the praise for the good things he's done? And this to me, so the idea that Elon is doing something wrong by exposing political corruption, by speaking truth to power, it's one of those funny things that, like, Democrats will say, speak truth to power. Well, Biden is power, and Elon is speaking truth to power.
Yeah.
Right. Biden, the Democratic Party, controls the government right now. And they have been shooting at Tesla. They've been shooting at Elon. They've been taking shots.
I want to go further. Go further. I think the current the current Democrat president and power system they've put in place, they control obviously their own communication, but they also control lots of the media communication, and they control things like rating agencies. That's why I'm coming there again. These are all the same power players that are cozy with each other, can pick up the phone, say, do this, do that. This ESG press release was a complete setup. Anybody not believing that, please DM me. I'm most happy to discuss this, but this is crazy. So, and you could just, when you dig into subjects like Tesla, you understand how suddenly these powers work together with a common goal. And the second he announced he wanted Twitter, once they've overcome their shock, which probably took a day or two, it has become a strategy, right? And we will have to live with that as a stockholder. And I'm like you, I'm seeing long-term, but if you're short-term interested, this is going to be.
No, I would say further, but strategically, I think it's a bad move for the party, because it's not going to hurt Elon with Republican or independent voters, but you may be hurting yourself. There's a question of what percentage of the Democratic Party base that they're counting on likes Elon more than they like the Democrats.
At least to the point to not show up at the ballot. They may not vote Republican, but they will just say, well, not this time.
And especially in 2022, when there's no prominent Republican Democrat race, and there's no presidential race, so turnout tends to be lower. People don't know this. Republicans tend to turn out more in non-presidential elections. And statewide, in state races, when there's no president, if there's no governor election, because the governor is the most prominent figure in, let's say, New York State politics or Florida politics.
I think it's going to be bloody for the Democrats in November.
And there's evidence of it. A lot of Democrat members of Congress have decided not to run for re-election this year, because they see the theory is, when you see a lot of members of one party decide, I'm not running for re-election this year, they've decided, okay, the writing's on the wall. I'm not going to win re-election. So let me get out without losing, and I'll get some lobbying job and take my $1 million a year gig and move on. And we've seen a lot of that in the Democratic. I think it's more than 20 Democrat congressmen have decided not to run for re-election.
30,
and that's just a sign that they know their numbers up. So, all right, we've been going for a while. Let me just bring it back to a second. What we were talking about at the beginning was the Securities and Exchange Commission. There is a proposed change in rule, just so people understand, that reduces the influence of credit ratings from S&P and Moody's in investment decisions by certain institutional investors. And what Alexandra suggests, and I agree, is if you go in the video description, there's a link to a page on the SEC website, and the video description tells you to scroll down to a certain spot, click, and you can submit a comment, and your comment should say, you read everything, read Alexandra's tweet, which is linked below that. Make sure you understand what this is all about. But the comment, what we're suggesting your comment would be, is basically something along the lines of, I support this proposed rule change. The credit rating agencies are obsolete. They're no longer necessary. Something really short like that. Thank you, and move on. If you want to write something longer, but that's fundamentally it. Alexandra said there's only 3 comments so far, as last time she looked this morning. So there's a real opportunity to submit your comment.
And actually, just quickly, so you see the 3 comments. I have that linked as well. But you also see that they had to disclose that they had 2 meetings with outside parties on this subject. Now, the first one that didn't tell me much, but the second one I found really funny. It was from Bloomberg. So Bloomberg obviously came to see the SEC to discuss the matter. They don't disclose what they discussed, but they had to disclose that this meeting took place. So I can just, blows my mind to even think that people from Bloomberg would go to the SEC to discuss this matter, because obviously if it is in favor of abolishing it, they don't need to go. So they obviously still want to maintain this, because just to show support, you don't need to go and tell them.
Right.
So I'm
right. Let me just address a comment in the chat. Nick B says, is now a good time to buy Tesla stock? Think it will go lower, ? So I want to be clear, I do not offer short-term stock investing advice or financial advice. It is my opinion, and if you watch my channel, you'll know it is my opinion that Tesla stock is going to go much higher than it is today. I think it's going to go to $5,000 a share, $10,000 a share. I have bought at $1,000 a share. I bought at $741 a share. Most of my purchases were much lower than the stock is today. But in the last, year or so, I bought at 1,000. I bought at 7, and I don't regret my purchases. If you're playing the game of I'm trying to buy it at the bottom, no one knows where the bottom is going to be. You can't predict that. And the danger is that you're waiting for the stock to drop to, let's say let's just pick a random number. Let's say you're waiting for the stock to drop to 680. And so you won't buy until it hits 680 and it drops to 690. And then it never goes lower and it goes up to 10,000 and you didn't buy because you were waiting for 680. What are you gaining by waiting for 680? And what do you lose if it never hits there and it goes to $10,000 a share? So my attitude has always been, when I have free cash, I buy Tesla stock.
That's exactly mine. And I bought at the 1,200, right? I have people telling me, oh, Alexandra, you look so smart. Tell me when to buy. I have no idea when to buy. I don't do it for myself. What I did learn for myself is I don't have the nerves anymore to do short-term options. I did at one moment, and then I got completely burned. And Tesla has a volatility that just doesn't go with my gut. I can't do it. It's too much for me. But buying stock, I'm a little bit in margin, but really small. And long-term leaps. I have 900 strike January 2024 calls on which I'm very comfortable. They're obviously not in the money at the moment, but they will be again. But other than that, I don't take additional risk, and I won't be a good advice because listen to me, I bought them at 1,200. So if you feel that now 700 is still not good enough for you, well, it's better for you than it was for me then. Right.
No, but I don't do options at all. I don't do margin at all. I think that decisions to do margin and decisions to do options, you really need to know what you're doing if you're going to do those things. Yeah. And I don't feel comfortable making those decisions for myself.
It's not worth it.
And I think I know a lot, and I'm not poor, right? I have a substantial amount of Tesla stock. I have a substantial net worth. I'm probably still, despite the fall in Tesla stock, I'm probably still a millionaire technically. So it's, and I make good money, and I have, I've been successful in life. And I look at, and I'm majored in mathematical economic analysis, and I went to Stanford Business School's PhD program. And I look at it and I say, this is too complicated for me. I don't like this risk profile. It's what's easy for me is I buy the stock when I have free cash. And then I don't even look, I don't look at the stock price on a daily basis. I didn't used to look at it. I used to not look at the stock price, more than a couple times a month. And now I'm on Twitter so much, and people are always tweeting when the stock's up or the stock's down. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll go take a look. But I don't change. I don't like suddenly say, oh, I better look at my portfolio. And I want to say I am diversified because I own Tesla in multiple accounts.
There he goes again. The same joke again and again, Warren.
Hey. You're still laughing. If you were married to me, it wouldn't be funny.
I'm not married to you.
No, you're not. So, all right. So listen, thank you very much for coming on. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
No, thank you for hosting me because this was important for me. I don't know whether I'm over enthusiastic about this proposal, but I really hope this goes through, and any help would be appreciated.
Please, for those watching, please go to the video description below, click the link to the SEC page, read the instructions in the video description, what to scroll down to, submit a comment saying, I support this proposed rule change. Credit rating agencies are obsolete.
And buy Warren's t-shirts.
And buy the t-shirts, insanely gigantic. Again, I want to say this. If you think this has some sort of sexual connotation, then obviously you have a dirty mind, and you should DM me. And a dirty mind, it's a terrible thing for a dirty mind to go to waste. It's actually about the value of self-driving cars and robo-taxis. So obviously,
and let me add something. At
elonbits.com, by the way, the shirts are at elonbits.com.
And people told me they don't see my chin. First video, so here I am showing my chin. There we go.
And the Alexandra noted, this t-shirt is what's called a tri-blend. This is probably the best fabric you can buy it in. When you're on the website at elonbits.com, there's a classic, there's a premium, and there's a tri-blend. I like the premium and the tri-blend. I offer the classic because it's cheaper, and some people like the cheaper version, but I personally like. Alexandra regrets buying the classic and wasn't aware of it. So you have to look carefully on the page and find the tri-blend and the premium and buy those if you like a better quality shirt.
And now he's going to say he's not getting as much margin on the tri-blend, but he still likes to recommend it, right?
Right. Actually, I make more money on the classic, even though I like it less. The price is higher on the higher end shirts, but I actually make less profit on them. And I don't care because the difference is trivial. But elonbits.com for the t-shirts, Tesla and Air, Tesla is the next Tesla. Thank you so much for coming on, Alexandra, and everyone else. Thank you for watching. Thank you to the moderators for moderating the chat. Thanks to everyone who participated. And of course, please support me on the Locals platform, on Patreon, or as a YouTube channel member. Exclusive content level channel members, Patreon supporters, and local supporters get early access to some videos. And hopefully you'll appreciate that as well. And there's other benefits. So thanks everyone for watching. And Alexandra, thank you for coming on. I'm going to end